You're watching Matchday Live.
Lays it off, Bruyne hits the shot, and City are level at the Bernabeu!
So on Sunday, we continue our hunt for a third Premier League title in a row as we travel to Goodison Park to face Everton.
Download the Man City app for exclusive Matchday commentary.
There's Haaland on the turn, and you know what happens next.
I mean, obviously, I believe that we're going to win, but it's going to be even tougher because they're going to be growing in confidence now.
Goodison Park for my 6 seasons here always have been so difficult. My thought is just Everton, to try to do it again, to win the titles at the end, give you an incredible energy when you are a little bit tired, give you energy, but the tension is there, the pressure is there, I feel it and we feel it, and that's normal.
Welcome to Matchday Live. Thank you so much for joining us ahead of the 2 p.m. kickoff as City take on Everton in the Premier League. And you can see our boys are arriving at Goodison Park now. We will have the all-important team news for you. As always, the first place to get it, the second that I am allowed. And there's Rico Lewis getting off the coach. Will we see a start for him today? We will let you know. And there we have Aymeric Laporte. Again, I imagine he is very much hoping he'll be playing today. Sergio Gomez arriving at Goodison Park. And the man, the Champions League Player of the Week, Kevin De Bruyne, Juleon Alvarez, they are all arriving at Goodison Park. What will the team be today? Will that man, Erling Haaland, the Football Writers Player of the Year, feature today? Welcome to Matchday Live. I'm Natalie Pike. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have two very shiny, special, lovely guests in the studio today, which of course we'll get onto a little bit later. And alongside them, three lovely human shiny guests in the studio as well. Of course, we've got Joleon, Lescott, Shaun Goater, and our women's manager, Gareth Taylor. Good afternoon to you all. Joleon, Lescott derby today.
Yeah, John Stones derby as well.
Okay, yes, yeah. John Stones as well. How are you feeling?
Confident about today, yeah. I'm looking at it from a manager's point of view, though, more than Everton, Man City. I'm looking at Dyche, Pep, and that record isn't great for Sean Dyche, is it?
I mean, there's the stats ahead of today. I didn't want to say any of them there because they're all so good and I don't want to be accused of jinxing it. But yeah, Sean Dyche has never beaten Pep in...
Yeah, but you said it's OK to lose today in that, though, haven't you? So...
We'll get onto that later. Okay, trying to set me up already. Sean, how are you today?
I'm very well. I'm also looking forward to this one. We know what Everton's about in terms of that they really work hard and they've obviously struggled for most of the season, but it's going to be a really good game today.
Yeah, we'll get on to team news and how we feel about it, Gareth, but it's just such a busy period of time just now, from game to game to game to game, business end of the season, but this is where we flourish, isn't it?
Yeah, notoriously over the last couple of years, you've seen this team really kick on at this period, and this is probably one of the most difficult games to concentrate on, being in between a Champions League semi-final. But I'm sure Pep and the team are ready for it, and it'll be a difficult one. I think it's can be a bit of a cauldron at Everton, as Joleon would have played in and remembered so many times. So I think it's a good one today, and hopefully we can get the positive result.
Yeah, I've been to Goodison as a fan many times, and it is a stadium where the atmosphere gets tense. Although, obviously, following their win against Brighton, I imagine the fans might be a bit more positive today.
Oh, 100%, yeah. But it won't change the atmosphere. They'll be up for this game. They'll know what's at stake for them personally. They'll equally want to disrupt City's title chances as well. So, yeah, knowing the Evertonians, they'll be right up for this game. And like Gareth touched on, it can be intense, but I'm confident that City win today.
I'll have the team news for you in about 30 seconds. I've been really, really interested waiting to see this team because obviously we have the Real Madrid game Wednesday, Sean. Pep will tell you that the focus is on the next game. Do you think it is, though? Do you think is there one eye on Real Madrid?
Well, I think this game's a really important game. So I think Real Madrid will be in the back of his mind. I think he'd want to try to get this game won as early as possible. And then I think the thought will go to Real Madrid if we could be up by a few goals with 25 minutes to go, then I think it'll be some consideration. Who can I rest? But trying to make sure the game is won first. But Everton will be thinking, they've got a big game. They may be thinking, taking an eye off the prize. Can we get at City and perhaps nick a point or nick 3 points?
Right, let's find out, Shaun. Here is your all-important team news for today. City's starting 11. And in goal, it is Edison. And then you have Walker, Diaz, Laporte and Akanji. Rodri, Gundogan, who's captain, of course, Mahrez, Alvarez, Foden and Haaland. So quite a few changes there. On the bench, of course, it's Ortega Moreno, Phillips, Stones, Grealish, De Bruyne, Silva, Gomez, Palmer and Rico Lewis. So that is your City starting 11 for today. Gareth, what's your instant reaction to that team news?
Yeah, it's a strong team. I think it's a good back line. I think there's obviously bit of change with Mahrez coming in, but he's been in really good form recently. So yeah, it's looking a really strong team.
It feels like, Joleon, when you look at that and you see Mahrez, Foden, Alvarez, who aren't regular starters recently. Yeah. It's not even a rotation. That really isn't. You're bringing in 3 world-class players and swapping into a team.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Obviously, the beauty of this squad and the beauty of what Pep's created in regards to the level of player. But yeah, I thought there would be changes due to the game. I think if you look back to the Leeds game, it was more clear that he was prioritising Real Madrid with the names. But any of the players that he's picked today could play on Wednesday. And obviously, but we expect Kevin De Bruyne to come back into the team and probably Jack Grealish as well.
Yes, we've got Stones, Bernardo, De Bruyne and Grealish all dropping to the bench. Laporte, Alvarez, Foden and Mahrez all coming in. In terms of that defence, though, Aymeric Laporte, only 2 seasons ago, many people would have said he was our best defender, Shaun. So him coming in again, it doesn't even feel like a rotation. It's just like world-class players.
It is, and the quality doesn't drop because Laporte is a quality defender, and he offers. We don't often see it because of how we play, but he's also got that diagonal pass in his locker. He's calm on the ball, and he also offers the physical presence that when players are running at him, he's a strong defender. But again, I think he's a composed defender. For me, the quality doesn't really reduce much. If he's got more games, then I think we start to look at him, we start to have that conversation, and we go, oh, Laporte, he's pushing Diaz, and Diaz is pushing Ake, and Stones, and you're just saying it's so much quality at the back. But for him, he would like to have had more minutes, but I feel very comfortable with him coming in.
Where do you think he's going to play today? Centre back or left back?
I think he'll play left back. It's between him
and Akanji.
I think and Akanji in left back, but I think he may put Akanji left back.
Just for preparation for Wednesday?
For Wednesday, yeah. Getting him.
You think, Gareth?
The interesting thing for me would be, obviously we've seen the animation of inside full-back or inside centre-back stepping forward, which Stones has done. It'd be interesting to see who does that in the back line today, or if they do it at all.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I just literally cropped his head then. I was thinking, will he play as... Because in terms of that aspect, he's probably the most natural to do that, isn't he? To go and play in there and operate in midfield. But then do you want to build up with a left-sided or left-footed player on the left and see, who knows? That's what Pep's created is in going. We're guessing in here, so I don't think Sean Dyche will know what's going on.
Yeah. What I like is that sometimes he plays inside fullback, but he plays that and he wants to dominate the midfield and depending on the opposition. And when we don't, it's also according to how the opposition play.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there thinking, well, who will play inside if he does? But when we look at the players, he don't often have Walker going inside.
Walker won't do that, no. Yeah. But I think he'll be a two-man build-up,
any of those
right?
have they? When you look at them there, Kyle, Ruben, Laporte, Akanji, I've not seen them play that role.
Do that, no. Only one I would say would be Laporte, but with Gundogan and Rodri, I think it'd probably be a two-player build-up, and then Alvarez won't come back and get involved in that really, so it'd be like a 4-2-4 kind of set-up.
So are we thinking then that it's going to be more of a traditional back four for us today?
Potentially,
yeah. It's going to be totally different. We never get it right when it comes to Pep.
It's my favourite thing to do, Shaun.
Yeah, they naturally will stay back a lot more than previous back lines, and it just probably absorbs the counter-attack, which obviously we know they're good at from their last game.
I'll throw another curveball in there, It could potentially be a back three in possession and Walker sort of pushing.
It could be Walker, yeah. I was just thinking Walker would probably be the only one that you would look.
What, high or inside?
Inside.
Hasn't Pep said that he doesn't
he doesn't. Maybe just double bluffing him because after that he picked him for a while and then he performed. So Pep does that, don't he? He knows what players he can pick out in the public and address their kind of weaker points to their game, and all of a sudden then they showcase what they're good at.
Well, even if Pep did, so if we're thinking a more traditional back four today, even if he did want to rotate players, he still could have brought Rico Lewis in, who obviously can play that inside position and move up to midfield. So what do you think that tells us about the game plan today, or what he's expecting from Everton?
Yeah, again, I think it's not a place where you want any doubts, and if you've got experience, and Kyle Walker can play with experience, obviously physically he can cope. I don't think there's going to be many games where you're worrying about his fatigue state, so he can play the capacity of games. And for Rico Lewis to go to Goodison, it's a tough place to go, to still be learning your trade, so it makes sense that Kyle Walker plays for me.
Yeah, and Pep was so complimentary of Rico Lewis. He continued.
Oh, he's done no wrong. He's done nothing wrong, but again, there's just still elements to learning, and it's not a case of just exposing him to every environment at once. It's like, well, there's still things at stake for the club, regardless of how we want to develop Rico. We need to get the points, really.
I want to talk about Rodri now, because we were having a heated debate earlier. I wanted Rodri rested today, because I feel like Rodri is so pivotal. I think to beat Real Madrid, to win the league, to win the cup, Rodri needs to be...
It's a league game then.
I know, but I'm worried that he's tired.
Nah, I thought he was our best player against Real Madrid. I know Kevin got man of the match, but I thought he was as consistent as anyone, and especially in the build-up when they try and press high. Probably not the case today, but I think his understanding of the game is unique to him, and for me, he's the best holding midfielder in the world.
Which is why he needs to be...
You can't rest him.
At his absolute best on Wednesday night for Real Madrid. But obviously you're a manager, Gareth, am I too focused on the next game?
It's a fine balance, isn't it, of like, do you rest players? Your important players, like we obviously, like Joleon said, he's really important, Rodri. Do you rest them, or do you keep him in there to play with rhythm? We've just had the same conversation about Kyle, who's more of an experienced player who puts a lot of energy into the game. You would think the way Kyle played against Madrid that he's going to be starting in the next game. Yeah. You'd definitely be looking to him to start. That might have been one that I would have looked at more to say, do you play him in this one? Does he need a rest? Or do you keep him in there and create rhythm? And sometimes the players want to do that. They don't want to rest, especially at this stage of the season.
Yeah. And I can imagine there's no way Erling Haaland ever wants to rest. I imagine he wants to play every single game. And of course, a big congratulations to Erling Haaland. He won the Football Writer Association's Player of the Year award this week. He also won the Player of the Month award for the Premier League, and he's in the shortlist for the final three of our Player of the Season. Pretty decent week for him, Shaun? I mean, I feel like he's just going to lap up awards this season.
Yeah, I think so. He's just been phenomenal. He's just calm, and we always talk about the Premier League being the most difficult league. Players need some time to bed in, some longer than others. But he's just come in and you just think, oh my God, how has he been able to do this and play so phenomenal, score these goals, have this connection with Kevin De Bruyne, also with Grealish. Here, this is him getting on the end of another chance. He's just been phenomenal, and for me, I like the fact that we see him. And I reckon he's always, if Pep's having a word, saying, I'm thinking about, resting you, I think he's saying, no, I want to play. Yeah. I want to play.
I think as the season's gone on, I think Pep's realised more that just play him.
Yeah.
He will score. Because I think earlier on he was willing to rotate him, and obviously, even when he scored like 3-4 goals, it's like get off. But I think now it's like, no, just play. Because if there's a chance, any given stage, he's going to be in and around it, and that's what I think, obviously, City, he changes for City, is the fact that we've always had the players, the quality to put ball in the dangerous areas, but not everyone's recognised. And I think there's a unique positional sense that strikers have, that he obviously has, that not everyone has. And I think we've got loads of creative players, but there's a selfishness that a striker has, and that I want a striker to have in order to just be in the positions to score.
Yeah, and if we can, we want him playing every game. And Pep's spoken quite a lot recently, Gareth, and we know the care that has gone into Erling Haaland, the way that he's looked after by the physios, the way that he's looked after in his diet to keep him fit, to keep him optimal for these amount of games. And thankfully, it's gone well this season. We've kept him fit for pretty much every game.
Yeah, he's been amazing. I think it's really interesting. I think as an athlete, he's probably quite unique. They'll have some real high-class athletes in that squad over there, but he's a bit of a level on his own in that respect. So, like you say, whether he's treated slightly differently, whether he has extra care, I'm sure they've managed that really well. But what I like about him is, even in his performance against Riyad, where he doesn't score and he's probably not involved in the game so much, his temperament is phenomenal. How he just stays within that, not too pent up, not too laid back. He's a problem. He's a real team player. You know, I've never seen anyone who gets so excited about the team winning, and it's amazing. And I think a lot of his goals, that one in particular that he showed there at Southampton, the players now put the ball probably about 5 or 6 yards in front of him. There's not many strikers that can make that ground up. His acceleration to get on the end of it is probably quite interesting for the likes of De Bruyne and Grealish, that they put the ball in a space for him rather than actually hitting him, which is really quite unique. But there aren't many players who can make up that 6 to 8 yards that he does, because a lot of his goals have come that way this season.
Yeah, and make up without it, and the defender not being able to stick with him. Yes, I love that. Well, we spoke to John Stones and Jack Grealish earlier in the week, and here's what they had to say about the Football Writer Association's Player of the Year.
I can't speak highly enough of him. You know, I think every striker in the world wants to score. But one thing that you know has impressed me so much about him is he's obviously desperate to score, but he's not like, you know, he's not like grumpy or whatever if he don't score. And he also, you know, loves, you know, getting assists and stuff like this. You know, I think he's got about 8 assists or something this season. So, you know, it just speaks for itself, really. You know, how good he is, not just as a goal scorer, but as an all-round player.
Everyone expects Big Earl to score every game now for how many he's scored already this season, and that's not the likelihood or the reality of football. And I do my best in training to kind of stop him and learn what he's so good at, learn off him, what he's so good at, and try and bring something new to my game and improve myself from you know, a world-class striker.
Even at the moment, you know, we're playing obviously a lot of games and stuff like that. And listen, it's difficult sometimes because you have world-class players and the manager can only pick 11 players. So it's difficult at times. But no, I think we have the perfect mix at the moment, and I think that's why, you know, we're still in the running for 3 trophies this year.
Of course, that's John Stones and Jack Grealish talking about Erling Haaland, and I find it so fascinating hearing John Stones talk about how his game has developed, because obviously he's been training with Erling Haaland all season. How would it have been, Joleon, do you think, for you to have trained with Haaland? Do you think it naturally would improve any defender's game that's spending all week with him?
Yeah, I don't think it's unique to Haaland. That's unique to world-class players. I think, like, for me, it was Sergio and Carlos Tevez, you know what I mean? So they were probably types of strikers that I would find a tougher time against than Erling Haaland, due to the style, me wanting to play that style, and the era we were playing in. There was similar players to Erling, as in Drogba, Van Nistelrooy and Rooney, to the physicality side of it. But in terms of learning, 100%, I get it. That is what top players do. They feed off teammates and find out what they're good at and what they're bad at and what they prefer to play against. And yeah, it can only improve John Stones if he's asking Erling Haaland multiple questions every day.
Now, if you'd like to ask multiple questions to our guests, you are very, very welcome. You can use the WhatsApp number that will be on your screen in just a second. And, you know, as always, whatever you want, fire it out, and I will get through as many questions as I possibly can. And, of course, don't forget as well, if you haven't already downloaded the Manchester City app, get that done now, so that before the game, you're ready to listen to the wonderful commentary from Alistair Mann and Michael Brown, the only place to get your commentary. So we've seen the City team. Let's have a look at Everton's starting 11 for today. OK, it's Pickford in goal, Patterson, Tarkowski, Mina, Holgate, Iwobi, Gay, Decore, Garner, McNeil and Calvert-Lewin. And you can see the subs on the screen as well. So that's the Everton starting 11 for today. And Gareth, you made some observations when we spotted the team just before. What do you make of Everton starting 11?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised on Keane, because he's been playing consistently at the moment. So I think it looks like a back four, but you never know really with Iwobi, if he plays on the right and they maybe play a 5. But I think Yeah, Garner playing is a bit of a surprise. Me and Joleon were talking about Garner before. He's a young player, came out of Man United, been on loan at Forest and is now at Everton. But he's a creative player, and I think they've got some creativity in there as well. A little bit of youth with Holgate, who's an experienced player, but is still quite young, and Patterson as well. So, yeah, Mina playing in there is interesting. Obviously, it's a perfect game for him in what his attributes are to try and deal with Erling. But it'd be quite fascinating to see that.
Garner, obviously coming from started his career at United, had a great season on loan at Nottingham Forest last year, and I know that a lot of United fans were hoping to see him come back into their starting 11 this year, and were actually disappointed when he went to Everton. What does it say to you with him being in the starting 11 today?
No, technically he's very good with our 21 squad, so I know him pretty well. Great recycler of the ball, energetic. So yeah, he's probably a more technical player in regards to keeping possession just in and around their own box, because obviously that's where the game may be for them. I think previously it was Drissa Gay, Anana and Decore, probably more athletic to go box to box than Jimmy. But yeah, comfortable player in possession, and referencing the Mina one, I think Rudiger's impact on Haaland has probably made a decision on him playing. I think he's more physically suited to play against Haaland than Michael Keane would be. So yeah, that's probably the reason he's in the team as well.
Okay. Of course, they had a great win against Brighton last week, Shaun, that took pretty much everybody, I imagine themselves, by surprise as well. Although I imagine perhaps the fans maybe were a bit frustrated about them being able to pull off such a great victory away from home at a team that everybody respects. That must have given them more confidence going into today.
Yeah, they'll have huge confidence from that. And I was also another one that was surprised by their performance and how they played, because Brighton up to that point was playing some really brilliant football. They seemed to have a number of different combination and passing patterns that they do to work their way up the field. But they matched them. They matched them in terms of that midfield, and then they broke out wide. Down there's wide areas pulling out the centre backs. And I think this could be one of the reasons why Pep is probably going with Walker, saying, well, if you're talking about trying to come down the outside, we've got somebody that's pacey, also world-class defender that can deal with those sort of situations. But from Everton's point, I think they'll come here with confidence, and they'll try to really contest the midfield, and they have some confidence from that Brighton game to think, well, we've matched Brighton in terms of, well, we've more than matched Brighton. We've done very well in terms of winning balls in that midfield area and then breaking. But City is a different outfit. It's a different animal totally.
In that game, Gareth, most of the goals came from a counter-attack, and they didn't have many chances, but they were clinical with the chances that they had. So what can we learn from that in terms of how to not let that happen today?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and like Shaun said, it might be Kyle Walker's really important in that, because Pep, in terms of the way he likes to build, is to build centrally and then eventually to go wide, and that's similar to what Brighton do. They've done it very well, where they control the play, try and provoke a reaction from the opposition to be able to break lines, and Everton really set about them. So I'm sure Sean Dyche is probably looking at that and going, this won't be too dissimilar today. Again, with Pep, he might have something up his sleeve to counteract that. So it'd be interesting to see.
I like that. Counteracting. Of course. I like that. Everton fans must be thrilled that Calvert-Lewin is back. He's obviously had some real trouble with injuries, but he's played in, I think it's 3 or 4, maybe this is his 5th start in a row, something like that, and that's a real boost to them.
Oh, massive boost. And I think similar to Erling Haaland, they're now manufacturing his recovery, his training programme, so because he's so important, not just for goals, but his all-round contribution. I don't think they've had anyone really throughout the season that's been able to get them up the field by just obtaining the ball for 5 or 6 seconds, and then allows the team to get high. So he's definitely done that, but they're going to have to be as clinical. That's the positive thing for me, is that Everton are going to have to score the efficiency of 90% of their chances, and that's if they get 5, because they can't waste chances against Man City. No one can, and if they was going to be that efficient, they wouldn't be in the situation they're in now. So that's the plus I'm taking from today's game, should I say, is that I don't think they were going to be as efficient as the chances they created against Brighton.
And they've only scored, I think it's 15 Premier League
goals. Yeah, I think it was 20% of their goals was against Brighton in one game.
Really?
Something stupid like that. So again, I think they've only scored 2 goals in a game 3 or 4 times this season. So 5 doesn't happen every week, where we know we can score 3 goals in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to score at least 2, aren't they, really, to get anything out of the game?
It's amazing, because when I look at their team from a set-piece point of view, Everton, I'm thinking that they've really got some powerful lads that can be really effective on set pieces. And I think that's going to be one of City's challenges today.
But if you look at our team,
oh yeah, we're also equally got those numbers that can pose a real threat in both boxes. So that's why it'll be interesting to see, you know, when Everton have corners, when they throw it in, how we're defending it, because equally we seem to have that hidden presence in our team as well.
So less than 40 minutes now till kick-off. You'll get your commentary at 2 o'clock with Alistair Mann and Michael Brown. And here our Georgia is chatting to Michael Brown pitchside at Goodison.
Yes, thank you, Natalie, and I'm here with Michael Brown. We've just got the team news. What are your initial thoughts on that, Michael?
Well, I think that was the talking point all along. What type of team would Pep Guardiola pick? Obviously, Real Madrid round the corner. People saying, well, you could rest him, you could make that change. I think, as we know, Pep Guardiola obviously really thinks about the game that's in front of him. It's so important in the Premier League. There's not much room for error, as obviously is documented, but it's great to see Phil Foden back in the side. Alvarez as well, getting that other run in behind Haaland. It's the difference in defence. We've obviously seen Laporte come in, and Akanji, who'll play in that left-back role again. So really strong team, and I expect with that side that City will have much more control.
So very, very confident then. That's good to hear. And you mentioned about the subs and having that many changes, 4 changes since Madrid. What sort of effect does that have, would you say, on the rhythm of those players that have played week in, week out, and those coming in? Is it more like fresh legs? Is something better, or what do you think?
I just think it's important that they all get those minutes wherever possible. So you see Riyad Mahrez didn't play in the week, he comes back in. Will he feature in the next one? How does he go on and perform? So again, the more minutes you get in the bulk of the players, it's important for Laporte, and we've seen some injuries in defence as well. So, Joe, I just think it's that rhythm as well as in some games the manager's decided not to make substitutions later on, when you sort of say, well, you've got 2 or 3 good players you could change, but the games can be really, really tight, and you know, he sees that it's so important to keep the rhythm, to keep that understanding in game, not just at the start of games when he's got to make these changes, but as well, so many games, quick succession, is very, very difficult on the training ground.
No, it definitely is, and you briefly spoke about Phil Foden before. He's back in the starting 11. What sort of impact will he have on today's game, do you think?
Well, you've got to hope he has a real positive one. It's great to have him back. I mean, I was speaking to somebody in the week, it's telling you that he can do everything. He's the best player that they've ever seen, best player that they've been involved and are around, and that just tells you everything about the talent of this boy. So great to see him back. He's getting more mature, he's getting more understanding as the role and what he's doing, the demands are playing at this level week in, week out for this manager in particular. So it'll be a good opportunity to really commit, because Everton, they've obviously been really, really fragile the last few weeks. They got a result against Brighton, but down that right-hand side for Riyad Mahrez or Phil Foden, they've had to make a late change. Mikalenko as a late absentee, and it looks like they've got a centre-back in Holgate there. So it's a real area that, in those wide ones for City, a Foden and a Riyad Mahrez could exploit.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And finally, Ilkay Gundogan is set to make his 300th City appearance today. What will his experience and leadership bring to these final games of the season?
It's just incredible, isn't it? How intelligent he is, how comfortable, how he understands the role. And obviously he gets on so well with the manager. You sort of go, he's almost a manager on the pitch for this group of players. And at times, when you talk about players who could be possibly rested or left out, the age he's getting to, Pep Guardiola still keeps going back for him, still keeps saying he's the one in the middle of the pitch. And to play him more of a 2, with Alvarez just dropping behind, is again a little bit different for him. So listen, it's a wonderful achievement. He keeps getting better and better. He's obviously late goals, that understanding of little runs into the area. And only last week, when you're thinking, oh, he's going to play the holding role, he's going to sit in, he's not going to get involved, he just comes up and gets 2 from a really good timing of a good position, and that's football brain that he's got. I mean, it's a great achievement for City.
No, definitely, and the trust is there definitely as well with him. Well, thank you very much for joining us as always. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much to Georgia there and Michael Brown. Michael Brown on co-commentary today on the City app with Alistair Mann. I checked that stat for you, Joleon, while they were chatting there, and it is no side has scored fewer home goals than Everton in the Premier League this season. They've only scored 15. Their 3-0 win over Palace in October is the only time they've scored more than 1 goal in a home league game. So Hopefully this boding well for us. Thank you so much for sending in all your WhatsApp questions. Loads of them coming through. I love that. Okay, let's start with you, Gareth. We've got one for you. Anna Donnelly, thank you so much for sending us in your question today. Anna asks, Gareth, what do you try to put into your tactics from Pep, or what tips has Pep ever given you to improve the women's game?
Well, there are some similarities for sure. I think, I think you'd be a fool not to use what you have at your disposal. And Pep's been really good with me. He communicates after certain games and vice versa with himself as well. So that's happened over the last couple of years. And the fact that we're so close, he comes out and occasionally will catch the end of our training session where I can go and have a good conversation with him. So I think he's been fantastic in that respect, and I can't speak highly enough of him. But again, of course, I think there's some good interactions there, obviously, with Rodolfo and Carlos Vicens, who's the set-piece coach who I worked with in the academy at under-18s. That's great to have as well, so that you're not always having to go directly to Pep because he's a busy guy. But certainly some of the things we look to do would be very similar. The personnel might be slightly different in the qualities they have, but we look to play inside fullback at times. Depends on what our type of build-up might be, whether it's wide, whether it's through the central areas. Probably one of the main ones we haven't used, and maybe Pep's not so much now, is like the false nine role. Probably because he has a real proper number 9, and we have a proper 9 in Bunny, and he does in Erling. So that's quite a fascinating concept as well to work at. But again, for me, I think it's all down to like the small details about how you can look at the players you have and see who's capable. Like we've been speaking about the back four today, and who potentially might be that one who goes in and plays in the midfield, and have they got the skill set maybe to do that or not? And I think that's the fascinating part.
Love that question. Thank you so much, Anna. We've got a question from Juan who says, hey, Natalie. Hey, Juan, how are you? He says, he's just wondering, what are all your thoughts on the mentality of the players given our superb position to win a, do I need to say the word, Juan? The T word, he's written it. Joleon, what do you think? What is the mentality or thoughts on the mentality of the players right now?
I don't think it has changed from last season or seasons gone prior to this. I just think there's a belief and a consistency. Obviously, Haaland has contributed to that with the goals he scored. But I think the mentality would be the same. I think that's probably the consistent thing that he's created since he's come here. Is no complacency in any game. I know there's probably obvious things in selection that you may think he prioritised in other games, but the preparation will be the same, the detail will be the same, and the approach in the build-up would be the same. So I think that's probably the biggest plus, is that they operate in the same way regardless of who's playing.
Shaun?
Yeah, I think the mentality is a culture thing, and I think Pep's just brought that. He's brought that whole winning mentality, and you clearly can see he sets the standard in training in terms of making sure the players are all at a certain level, pushing and challenging everyone. We heard John Stones talk about things he's learning off Haaland in terms of marking him, because he's an absolute world-class centre forward. So it's a culture and it's a mentality, and these guys they're used to winning. They understand, and they know that they don't come off that level, because in order to consistently be here where they are at this stage of the season, and to then be there again next season, they know every day they show up, whether it's training or games, they've got to be at it.
Love that. Great question. Thank you so much. Keep those WhatsApp questions coming in, and I will get through some more a little bit later on. But you will have noticed the 2 shiny trophies in the Matchday Live studio today. Well, our academy have been outstanding this season, with both our under-18s and our EDS coming through as Premier League 2 and Premier League under-18s national champions. Look at them, they're beautiful, and hopefully they'll be joined by others by the end of the season. Now, we've got 3 perfect guests to have a chat to us today in the studio, of course. Worked with him, and I imagine you might have worked with some of them in England as well, some of the players. Yeah,
some of them, Rico, more so than Ellie and Cole. But yeah, like the conveyor belt that City have created, and the talent, the understanding of the system is pretty unique to this club. There's not many clubs that operate their academy in the way that we do. So plaudits not just to the players, to everyone involved.
Yeah, and this, of course, will be the results of many, many years' work. We'll talk about some standout players. I think anybody that's watched Carlos Borges play this season can see how phenomenal he is, Gareth. So, 19 years old, top scorer in Premier League 2, 21 goals this season. That's a pretty decent return for him. What do you make of him?
For a wide player to score 21 goals is pretty phenomenal. And yeah, Carlos is a good lad. I worked with him for a small period just before I was transitioning over to the women's. He's unique. He's very unique. He's off the cuff in a lot of games, but he's a game changer and he's a match winner. And I think he's done that a lot this season. But I think he's done it within a framework that Bruyne set. And I think what we were talking about previously about the culture you try and create, because it's very difficult in under 23s as well, because you've got players in there who either want to be at the first team or potentially going out on loan. So to create that solid culture, I think is hats off to Bruyne and his team and the way he's managed that and allowed players like Carlos to flourish within it.
I love the fact that all of our teams have incredible goal scorers, Shaun, which I'm sure yourself really appreciate. So we talk about Carlos Borges, their top goal scorer in the Premier League 2. Obviously, we know Erling Haaland. We know how many goals Bunny's getting in the WSL. And we've got Justin Aboado, City's top goal scorer for the Premier League under 18s, 16 goals, 16 years old. We are producing phenomenal goal scorers.
Yes, we really are. And really, if you just even trace down even a bit further, you go to the 16s and the 14s and the 12s, we really are producing some really quality players. But Justin Aboado is, starting to see a little bit more of him as well. A player that can play wide, play up top. A typical City player can play sort of two or three positions. But I'm starting to get the feel that he enjoys scoring goals and wants to score goals, which is why at the end of the season, we got these sort of numbers with him. He's somebody that wants to be there where it matters, even as a wide player, coming in the box and trying to get at the end of things. Really good player, typical City player, technically, really good. They played well. It was against West Ham. I thought they were phenomenal because West Ham gave them a real good challenge, but they stuck to the task, kept the ball. It was extra time where I thought they really won the game because they controlled it even in extra time, and both teams were a little fatigued. Absolutely brilliant. We're looking at some really quality players within this group, and again, to talk about the mentality, having these opportunities for these kids is what it's all about. Because when they eventually, one or two of them start to go with the first team, Pep wants them to have that mentality, and because this is what's the demand when they go with the first team.
I know you've watched a lot of their games, commentated on a lot of their games. In terms of the under-18s, who's the standout player for you?
You come with these questions. I said,
Shaun can never give you one name.
Listen,
never.
Justin, there's just so many really good players. Ndala, he's a quality wide player who takes on players, asks questions. That's an unfair question. I'm sorry I can't give you an answer to that one.
Shaun, I'm not going to lie, I did it on purpose because I know that you never like to just give one name. In terms of breakthrough players, obviously you mentioned Rico Lewis. You've seen him with your work for England. Rico Lewis and Cole Palmer showing impact, breaking into the first team on regular occasions this year as well. Obviously, we know about Phil Foden as well. It's so difficult, isn't it, for these kids to be incredible, to be the best at their age group, and then to break through. But to have had players doing that, it must be incredibly positive for the other EDS players to see that.
Oh, of course, yeah. It's obviously a motivation for other academy players, and I think I don't know if Gareth will agree or Shaun, it may be easier for that to happen as time goes on due to the system that the academy play. Like, in the greatest respect to Rico Lewis, I don't know if he can play for every other team in the Premier League, which he's saying is crazy because he plays for Man City, but the system he's grew up on plays to his strengths. He knows where players should be and where they will be in regards to the system. So I think we will see more talent from the academy come through. And it's strange because we're requiring the top 3 to 5 best players in their position in the world. But then we're asking academy players to come through, having some of them never played a first team game. So I think it has to be a credit to the academy and the system they operate in because it's unique to Man City.
And of course, the academy as well is producing so many incredible players that we've seen go out on loan this season. Obviously, we know all about McAtee and Doyle and the players that are playing throughout the championship and other teams. So this is incredible for the academy. That about having players actually move forward to first team men's football, is that still the goal, Gareth? Do you think?
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, whether it be here with Pep or elsewhere, like you've said, I think it's looked really good over the last few years. I think. Going back to what Joleon was saying there about the likes of Rico, these players that have broken through and got into the team on a maybe not a regular basis, taken Phil obviously a few years to get to the levels where he has, but I think Phil, this could be his 5th Premier League, which is incredible for someone of that age. But I think these guys would, I like what I see in Rico. I know that potentially if he was to go to another club, like playing for Sean Dyche, would he say he's big enough to play in that at that level? But I think he's a phenomenal player. He's got a great mentality as well, and I can see him pushing players. This is a player who could have been in that, celebrating with the under-18s, and he's not. He's there in the first team. He's really establishing himself and working hard, and also, being a leader in there for someone so young is incredible.
It's crazy when you put it like that, because Pep has spoken so highly of him about his impact, Shaun, on the first team, about when he came in at that point in the different position, the option that he gave Pep that we needed at that point. Yeah. But then to Gareth remind us that he could have been playing in that under-18s team. It's incredible.
Incredible. And he has to have some confidence because you're going across to the first team, you're playing in training with top players, but, the best manager in the world, and to go in and to really tick all the boxes and Pep trust him in this way, for me, I think it's phenomenal. Because as I was watching him and I seen him go inside the pocket, I'm thinking, this guy is as though he's played there for years. And I'm looking at him. And the players that will sort of come into mind, I'm thinking of people like Iniesta and Xavi, how he's just in that little pocket and he's having 1 and 2 touches, making the right decision. I'm thinking, this kid's so young. But what it just shows, and listen, he's still got a long way to go in terms of his learning. It just shows he totally understands what Pep is asking. And Gareth's right. He could have been a part of that celebration, but Pep's seen enough of him to say, this kid here in his game, a bit of his mentality, his understanding needs to be around this, and it's getting the rewards of playing and being around it.
I just maintain that if we go on to win this league, Rico Lewis was such a huge part of it. At that time when he came in, we needed him. We needed him so badly, and he just will deserve so many plaudits should we go on to win.
It was in the new year, wasn't it? It was just the turn of the restart, and he was fantastic, against Chelsea on a couple of occasions, Liverpool, he just went in and played like beyond his years.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, congratulations to the under-18s and congratulations to the EDS. Incredible, phenomenal achievements as always. The Etihad Player of the Year nominations were of course announced this week through the top 3 for City, and in there is our Nathan Ake, which just very much deserved. Not in the team today, hopefully he'll be back very, very soon though. But in terms of our defence, having a Player of the Season in the defence, Joleon, you must be happy about that.
Yeah, and deservedly so. I think probably one of the most consistent performers in different positions, and I think there was a spell around Christmas when the team wasn't performing, but watching him closely, he was performing. I remember the Spurs game stands out for me, the Spurs game at home when we lost. If you get a chance to watch that game again, he was unreal, and obviously we lose, I think it was 2-0, but in terms of defender, like all of our defenders now, I think he loves defending, and especially as a fullback, I think he enjoys the 1v1 battle, and that for me, that was the bit I enjoyed the most when I used to play out there. It was like, you get to be 1v1, so it's you versus him, and there's no other outcome in regards to who's going to win. So he looks like he enjoys not letting the ball past him, which I can't say for many of the defenders in the league.
Yeah, I just think, he's been absolutely phenomenal this season. Really hope that he gets back in time to play some more games at the end of the season. But a quick question for you. Which player do you think's made the most tackles in our squad this season?
Most tackles?
Most tackles in the squad.
These are tackles and not interceptions.
You're going to say Rodri.
I was going to say Rodri, I was thinking Rodri.
Tackles, you going Rodri?
Well, I'll go a little different. I can't. He hasn't played many. I would say Rodri. But Aki, to throw a different name out there.
Maybe Stones.
Okay. You're doing a Shaun now, throwing the names, Joleon. Player with the most tackles.
Most tackles?
Yes.
Kanji.
It's Rodri.
Yeah, Rodri.
Rodri, your first instinct, Gareth, was there.
Because the games,
Most tackles in the squad with 66, and obviously, yes, he plays every single game, which we talked about already, Joleon. What does that say about the way that we play, Gareth, in terms of Rodri's positioning defensively, that he makes the most tackles?
That he helps a back four out a lot. That's what it tells you, doesn't it, really? That he does the job for those guys as well. And I think he's, like Joleon said earlier, he's one of the best in the world at that. But he also offers so much going forward as well. He's that assister of the assister, if you like. He's the start of the chain, where he finds those advanced midfielders very well and allows them to go and make the final assist. But he's similar to Nathan, like we've just spoken about, two incredible personalities, characters, and leaders within a team of leaders.
On that point, though, we associate tackling with on the edge of our box. I think a lot of them would be in the final third of the opposition half as well. I think he recognises where the danger is going to come and just nullifies that threat so early in their transition. I think that's what separates him for me, is that he never rarely goes to ground, but he always seems to be where the ball is. So it's a unique talent, that.
Yeah.
So he's made the most tackles in the City squad this season. Now, somebody on the pitch today has made the most blocks in the Premier League this season.
Yes. No, someone in a team.
Somebody on... No, not in... Somebody on the pitch today. Tarkowski.
Yeah.
Yes, Tarkowski has made the most blocks in the Premier League this season.
So that bodes well for us.
Yeah.
That means they're accepting a lot of shots.
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, straight away it makes you think, well, they probably had the most shots against him, but...
And them stats are always can be flawed, because the most doesn't mean the most effective. Like, if he's blocked 100 shots but they've faced 500, that's 20%. Where if they've faced 200, it's 50%. Then you're looking at it like that point of view. You're like, oh, that's really good. But depending on how many they've faced, it's always a ratio thing. When I was playing, I always worked off the ratio rather than the amount, because the amount could be relevant.
Oh, yes, you can always twist a stat to fit your story.
Like if Haaland's scored 50 goals, but he's had 10,000 shots. But then it's not great in any aspect of it if you look at it from that point of view. But I always look on the ratio rather than the actual number.
I've seen a stat somewhere. There is a player in the Premier League that's had more shots than Haaland, and it was like the most shots in the Premier League this season, and Haaland wasn't number one.
What's the point?
Why? Who cares?
That guy's proud of it too. I've had more shots than him.
Yeah. I think this team were particularly proud. I can't remember who it was as well, but yes.
Probably Liverpool.
Yeah,
probably Liverpool.
It probably was. So yes, it will be interesting of course, to see today that Tarkowski and how many blocks he faces today. I mentioned there that Nathan Ake has been nominated for the Etihad Player of the Season. So you could vote for anybody. Well, it's been shortlisted now down to 3. Nathan Ake, that must have been difficult. That must have been so tight, by the way. Nathan Ake, Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland are your final 3 for the Etihad Player of the Season. You can vote for that now on the website mancity.com/citizens. Get yourself logged in and vote for your Player of the Season. Shaun, is there any point asking you who would be your Player of the Season, or will you tell us all of them?
I would get off defence on this one occasion.
Because it's easy.
For me, it's easy.
Go on then.
Yeah. He's been an absolute rock in defence, but he scores so many goals. It's Erling Haaland.
There you go with that.
And he's done great in midfield with his assists. Okay. I mean, 51 goals, 8 assists. He's in his first season.
And that's what's so phenomenal. In fact, he's come in the first season, and we know how difficult it is to play in the Premier League, and he's just come and just blown so many things out of the water. And it reached a point midway through the season, I stopped counting because he was scoring faster than I was able to keep up. He'd score a hat-trick, and I'd be like, right, he's on 26, and then he's like, oh, he scored another hat-trick, and I say, okay, he's on 29. Then he scored a brace, and I went, I got to stop counting and just got to leave it to every other week and sort of just recap at that point. It's been phenomenal. He really has.
He's crazy. I still don't think he gets enough praise for what he's done. Like, that is... I think if he was English, he'd be more spoken about. But that is what he's done.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've scored 36 goals in my career, and he's scored 50 in a season. It's like, it's crazy. It's crazy what he's done.
I want to put up an argument for Nathan Ake and for Kevin De Bruyne as well. So we'll make it because I do think Erling Haaland's going to sweep every single award.
He should
in the world.
because I think everyone's performed at the level they should or we expect, but he's just performed at the highest of the levels. Like no one's done that. So we've seen people perform like Kevin and Nathan, But no one scored the amount of goals he scored. So rightly so, he should be Player of the Year for the Premier League, and never mind for the club.
Going off slightly on a tangent there, I want to come back to Nathan Ake and Kevin De Bruyne, because I think there's a stone solid argument for both of them. But that got me thinking there about World Awards.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Ballon d'Or. 100%. I'd said but I think the Ballon d'Or is now associated with Champions League, isn't it? So I think you have to win the Champions League in order to do that. So if he's he's got in the Champions League, 11, 12?
I think it's 12. It's the most of any player from a club in a single Champions League season. I think it's equal with Van Nistelrooy, something like that.
There you go. So you got his top Premier League. Yeah. If their club win the Champions League and the league, not saying we don't want the FA Cup, but if he wins them, he has to win the Ballon d'Or. But then again, people will argue Messi won the World Cup, so that's why that counter.
I'm going to say Julian Alvarez won the World Cup.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have that.
I agree with that, but in regards to that's the only one. That's the only downside to the World Cup is that it was Messi. I think if it was another nation, I think he wins the Ballon d'Or hands down. But I think it's Messi. It's like a little bias with him and Ronaldo. If they do anything in a season, it's given to them, isn't it?
If we win the Champions League, Erling Haaland wins the Ballon d'Or, but does Kevin De Bruyne come second?
Yeah. Well, you got. I think you got Messi. Yeah, I think Messi comes second. I think Messi comes second.
Why? What's Messi done for PSG?
But then the argument would be, what's Kevin done for Belgium?
And I guess that.
And he won the World Cup. That's a big achievement. The World Cup is pretty big.
Massive pressure.
Okay, well, where's Julian Alvarez ranking in the Ballon d'Or then?
No, I'm not saying he shouldn't be in there. I'm just saying
you won't be far behind either, will he? He was in the final.
Scored a hat-trick in the final.
Scored a hat-trick in it,
Right,
Yes, I digress.
We're talking
anyway. I
ourselves
apologise. Yes,
I know. It's got to be early.
It's got to be early.
It's early. We only want the top one. We don't want all three. We're not being greedy.
I'm greedy.
We're not being greedy.
I want everybody recognised. In terms of Kevin De Bruyne, I still think he's an absolute could win the Player of the Season award, Gareth, because I still believe that when Kevin De Bruyne plays well, City win, full stop.
Yeah, he's a great player, scores important goals for the team, has big moments. And you can see Pep's using him in a different type of way than he's probably had over the previous seasons, where he tended to play a lot, where he's pulling him out of certain games now and preparing him for specific ones. But yeah, I mean, I think this time when he scored this goal, Madrid were on top a little bit, start of the second half, but it's a phenomenal strike. 2 great goals in this game. And that's what he does. He comes up with big goals at big moments.
Yeah.
Really does.
That's the thing with KDB. I think he has the beauty of sometimes not playing that well, but then having a moment like this, or sometimes he just controls the whole game. And I think that is a sign of a world-class talent, is they're always involved in the game. Like for me, in this game, I don't think he was one of his best overall in the game. But then when that's happening, you only want it to fall to him. So that's the beauty of Kevin De Bruyne.
What I like with Kevin De Bruyne is when and Gareth just touched on it, when he gets to big games, he shows up. You know, when I remember the game we played where Gundogan, the final game of the season, Gundogan scores those goals. I remember when we just conceded, it looks as though it's out of our hands, and the camera sort of panning around the players, but then it depends on De Bruyne. And at that moment, I'm sitting there thinking, we've sort of thrown it away. But he's a player that comes in those moments and he's grabbing the ball and he's sort of like, come on. And there's games where he comes in and he does that sort of things, either assisting or scoring. And he's just got this natural ability to, when the chips are down or in big games, and he's like, no, I'm not accepting this. And that's the mentality. And for me, the big games, De Bruyne shows up.
24 assists and 10 goals for De Bruyne this season. De Bruyne plays well, we win. I'll always maintain that. And then, of course, we've mentioned him briefly, the third and final nominee for your Player of the Season award is Nathan Ake. And I just think if this was being judged on where he was at the start of the season and where he is now, it'd be hands down a victory for him, for the development of where he's come from in perhaps, and I mean no disrespect, perhaps where he was in the pecking order, to now being a definite name in the first 11 when he's fit.
When he's fit, 100%. And I think that's the reason Jack Grealish has flourished, because I think the way he plays as a left-back, he doesn't crowd out his space, he lets him do his thing, and Jack can trust that I can take a bit more of a risk because I know Nathan Ake is going to be there to support me in regards to the defensive position. But yeah, at the start of the season, Ruben Dias was hands down, you're going to say start, and all of a sudden it's Akanji and Nathan Ake, and they created a partnership, and then he goes out wide, and it's like, oh, he can really defend. And as I said, there was talk of him leaving, wasn't there? I think as well. So
it was linked to Chelsea. I feel like in the summer.
Yeah, I think that was closer than what people may believe in regards to that. So credit to him. He's obviously a professional, regardless of what was going on around him. He's put his head down and just played to his best capabilities.
Yeah. I love the fact as well for the final three we've got a defender, a midfielder and an attacker as well. It's lovely. You can vote now. Get onto mancity.com for citizens, get yourself logged in and vote for your player of the season. I'm going to try and get through a couple more of your WhatsApp questions because we are about 10 minutes away now from kick-off. So there is a question from somebody called Underscroll. Very nice. And he wants to know, or they want to know, how is Pep going to balance City's midfield with only Rodri and Gundogan? What do you think that?
I think that's a problem for Everton more than for the Pep. I think both of them can operate in the build, getting out from the back. I can't imagine Everton pressing too high anyway. And then the rotation, I don't think it's restricted to where we think they're going to play. I think the intelligent players find the space and recognise what's needed for the game. And for me, as much as Kevin De Bruyne and all the players we've talked about, Ilkay Gundogan's IQ, I don't think I've seen a player with a level of IQ that can operate in multiple positions like him. It is crazy, to be fair. The first half against Leeds was one of the best performances I've seen from a midfielder. That crazy.
Love that. I just want a yes or no answer from you all. And if we need to, we can discuss it in detail later. Matt asks, do you think this is the best version of the City team in the Pep era? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no, fence sitter?
No.
No?
I would say no. I think there was a period.
Yeah.
I'd say no.
No, right. We'll get on to that because I think that's really interesting. We'll get into that in a bit more detail, either at half-time or full-time or on another show. But indeed, thank you very much for that, Matt. And I only say that, Shaun, because I suddenly clocked the time.
Yeah.
And we're about 8 minutes away.
He was going to beat that anyway.
Minutes on that, couldn't he? Yeah. So if you're just joining us, very welcome to Matchday Live. Let's give you a quick recap of your starting 11 for today that has 4 changes from the team that drew with Real Madrid. It is Ederson, Walker, Diaz, Laporte, Akanji, Rodri, Captain Gundogan, Mahrez, Alvarez, Foden and Haaland. So that is your starting 11, 4 changes ahead of the game, which is in about 8 minutes' time. So, final thoughts from you all. I love getting to this point, Gareth, because we've talked about the City team, we've talked about the Everton team. What are your feelings ahead of the game? What sort of game are you expecting?
I'm expecting a tough game for City. I don't think it'll be easy. I think they'll have to stay in the game early on. They'll have to quieten the crowd, if you like, a Goodison crowd. So I think once they get their control within the game, and it might have to be some kind of nervy moments in order to get that. Pep always talks about the suffering that happens. You always suffer in most games, and it could be in the early part, latter part. But the quicker they get their control and get their passing game going, that's when I think we'll start to see good things from them.
What's the key battles going to be today, Shaun?
Key battles, I think, Calvert-Lewin in terms of up top. I think it's about keeping him quiet. He's the one that I think will give him a bit of sniff of there's some possibility of creating chances and goals around him. So I think keeping him quiet is good. It's going to be key. They have other players that can cause a little bit of concern, but I think it's mainly Calvert-Lewin. If we can keep him quiet, be a really good game for us. But I'm expecting a tough game. Gaz is absolutely right. I think, we need to get our rhythm and get into it. And once we get into our rhythm, keep the crowd quiet and everything, and we should win the game comfortably.
And Joleon, did you notice I managed to go the whole hour and not let you get it in again? But we'll quickly say, I'm OK if we don't win today.
You never said that.
I'm OK if we don't win, but you disagree.
Lose. You said lose.
I'm OK if we lose today. We've got a gap.
Okay. No, because then we have to win. And like I said, you want that to be the last game. Like, imagine going into the last game of the season and being OK if we lose, rather than today. You know what I mean? And I don't think this is a fixture that either of these teams would pick.
OK, thank you. Score prediction, Gareth?
2-0 City.
3-1 City.
Yeah, I was going to say 3-1 City.
So 1-0 City. Let's move on quickly. Thank you so much for joining us on Matchday Live today. You get your full match commentary now on the City app with the wonderful Alistair Mann and Michael Brown. We'll be back at half-time and at full-time, where hopefully I am very, very much proved wrong. Thank you for joining us. Right, Alistair, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Welcome to Goodison Park. A game every few days. I don't think any City player would have it any other way. At this time of the season, you don't want to have training session after training session. You just want recovery and then prepare for the next match. And with the Blues still going for an historic treble,